This 10-plus minute video session goes over research-backed strategies that will help you create more effective screencasts that result in meaningful learning. This video is grouped into 5 different sections. I'm going to begin by defining and explaining 2 concepts, screencasts and the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. As an outgrowth of the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, researchers developed a number of principles or guidelines for learning with multimedia like screencasts. I'll share with you the applicable principles from a very general perspective, and then I'll translate these principles into screencast specific guidelines. I'll share with you a number of research-backed considerations that you should keep in mind when creating a screencast for students. Although I'll define screencasts and give you an opportunity to explore an example on your own, I'm not going to be talking about the technical steps for actually creating a screencast. What is a screencast and what is the cognitive theory of multimedia learning? Think of a screencast as a video that is made on a computer that shows what is happening on the screen. A screencast almost always includes narration that helps to explain what is being shown. There are a number of different genres of screencasts. By far, the most common use is to share a how-to series of steps that learners should follow to perform specific activities on a computer. When you visit the tutorials section of your favorite educational tool on the internet, chances are pretty high that you will see a screencast that shows you how to use features of that tool. The purpose being for you to watch, listen, learn, and then apply what you have seen on your own. The example on this slide, which I'm not going to play for time reasons, shows how Albemarle County students log into Google using their credentials. A screencast is a form of multimedia instruction. It's helpful to understand that instructional multimedia was originally framed as the presentation of words, either spoken or written, along with some type of pictorial representation. And by that I mean pictures, video, illustrations, animations that help somebody learn. This diagram is Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. For multimedia like screencasts, Mayer's theory goes something like this. Learning happens through 2 separate sensory channels, one focused on hearing, which are the dark purple boxes that you see at the top of the screen, and the other focused on seeing, the light purple boxes on the bottom row. This 2-channel representation of cognition begins when sounds are heard and the eyes see either video or, if there's text, words. It's important to note that these 2 sensory channels have a limited amount of information that can be consciously processed at any one time, and a person has to attend to both channels when learning from multimedia. When information has been seen or heard, it passes from the sensory memory into working memory, where a lot happens. In order for learning to occur, the learner has to select what is most important and develop organized, integrated models that depict new knowledge. All of this occurring in working memory at the same time. When combined with prior knowledge, these models are actively developed to reflect either a correct or incorrect framework of the material, and new understanding is either assimilated or accommodated into long-term memory. Where the power of Mayer's theory really becomes clear is in the 2+ decades of research studies that followed his initial description. What happened was that educators and researchers began to look very closely at the intricacies of multimedia and what either promoted greater learning from multimedia or what hindered understanding. From this arose a theory called cognitive load. This theory explained that the two sensory channels, visual and auditory, can easily become overloaded if certain facets of multimedia are either included or removed from the overall learning experience. Researchers identified core principles that multimedia creators should follow to maximize the benefits of this type of learning while minimizing aspects that hinder cognition and processing. What are the principles for multimedia creation? The principles that I share in the following slides have been studied in research settings and all are applicable to creating screencasts that maximize the amount of learning within students. The first principle is called the pre-training principle. Whenever you create a multimedia learning experience like a screencast, learners will process and understand what is being shown and described if key concepts or difficult to understand topics occur prior to using the multimedia. The second principle is the multimedia principle. It says that you should use spoken words along with pictorial representations like video in the case of screencasts, and doing so, combining words or narration with video, is more effective at knowledge transferal than simply listening or reading words. Third, the contiguity principle is focused on time, and it is the fact that people remember more information when they simultaneously hear an explanation and see what is being explained. Fourth is the coherence principle. This principle is style-based and focuses on distracting components in multimedia instruction. When creators add seductive elements like fancy graphics, familiar music, and tangentially related stories, learning transferal suffers because the learner often becomes distracted or hyper-focused on unrelated information. The fifth principle, known as the segmenting principle, speaks to how much information a learner can comprehend and the connectedness of the discussed content. People generally have the capacity to remember 5 to 9 chunks of new information before processing and integration becomes muddled. The modality principle refers to the continuity of what is being shown to the learners. When multimedia includes a lot of text while simultaneously showing activity on the screen in the form of a video, the visual processing channel often becomes overloaded and attention to important details are missed. The seventh principle, the guidance principle, involves the way in which information is shared in multimedia. Multimedia that explicitly instructs and contains clear, unambiguous explanations helps to facilitate learning. The eighth principle is the personalization principle, and it primarily focuses on the language that is used in multimedia. Whenever possible, incorporate first and second person perspectives using narration. Finally, the signaling principle involves clues that help learners attend to key information that will help them recall and transfer the presented material. So, what are the practical considerations when thinking about the principles and screencasting? Consider the following 12 guidelines as you make videos for students. Number 1, write a short script. It doesn't have to be the entire narration that you're going to say, but look at the script and make sure that there are 5 to 9 chunks of information that you're trying to teach. If the audience is younger, shorten those 5 to 9 chunks to fewer sections of information. Number 2, practice and evaluate the script. A lot of times when you write a script, you'll find out as you practice that there is too much information, or you realize that you need to add something because your audience is younger or older. Number 3, include a 2 to 3 sentence introduction that explains those key concepts. This introduction is meant to activate knowledge that the viewers or learners will need to know while they're watching your screencast. Number 4, narrate while you're showing stuff on the screen. Refrain or avoid providing a lengthy explanation and then showing what you just explained afterwards. Make sure your narration and what you're showing happen simultaneously. Number 5, don't include music that might be distracting or have fancy transitions or stories that take students or learners away from the core focus of what you're trying to teach them. Number 6, speak slowly and use pauses to group information as you're sharing stuff on the screen. Number 7, be explicit and avoid language that requires inferences. If your screencast video requires viewers to guess at what you're talking about or to make illogical leaps in their own minds as to what they might have to do, then go back and revise your script and revise what it is you're showing on the computer. Number 8, don't include huge blocks of text that require lots of reading while you're showing actions on the video screen. Doing so often overloads the visual channel because learners are having to read and watch at the same time. Number 9, use conversational language. Use pronouns like I, you, and we. That adds a level of personalization that helps learners connect what you're showing to their own lives. Number 10, emphasize key points or key ideas by using your voice, or if you have the ability, add highlights or enlarge the screen in your video. Number 11, encourage viewers to be able to control what it is that they're seeing through pauses or rewinding the video so that they can feel ownership over the learning that you're trying to have them do. Number 12, keep the total length of time of your screencast video to 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes teaching new content through a screencast is a good length of time. Now that you know about the principles and have 12 considerations that you should use for screencasting, it's important that you practice applying what you've learned. Go back and review the principles and guidelines, write them on a sheet of paper, and then proceed with the next section of the video. To practice applying the guidelines and the principles, pick a topic that you already know how to explain that's on a computer. Picking a familiar topic, especially when you haven't made a screencast before, will remove one of those hurdles of not knowing what to do when you're making your screencast. Follow these 5 things and make a screencast. This is the final part of this presentation. If you have any questions, send me an email. All of the research that went into this presentation is in the last slide in the references section. Any of the titles of the articles you can click on that will open a PDF version of the research article, and you can read it. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.